America great again.
I believe that together we can make America great again.
And we will make America great again.
Every person is afraid of that hat. I'm afraid of that hat.
A Central Texas man has been arrested for attacking a teenager wearing a red Make America Great Again hat.
You got all these dirty-ass crackers behind you with a red Make America Great hat again on.
We are hearing from a Native American elder and Vietnam War veteran speaking to CNN after a disturbing viral video.
Outrage after some teenagers taunted a Native American elder.
I do think it was a watershed moment, not only for the press, but just for the American people.
This was a unique experience that no one else has had.
Any editor worth his or her weight would say, well, where's the news?
Saturday morning, January 19th, 2019. Twitter and Facebook are in a frenzy, getting angrier by the minute. A video going viral. An encounter at the Lincoln Memorial between students from Covington Catholic High School in Kentucky and a Native American activist.
Shows a group of teens harassing and mocking him in the nation's capital.
Soon, the media takes notice.
A troubling scene many are calling racist played out in Washington yesterday on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
Dozens of other students from the all-male private school are seen wearing Make America Great Again hats and shouting.
From across America to Canada's City TV.
It's this shot here that bothers me the most, I think.
And as far away as Australia and Malaysia. Celebrities and politicians are quick to comment, and YouTubers all over the world weigh in.
Kathy Griffin was saying, I need names, shame him, dox him. How do these people not understand the implications of that?
I blame that f***ing kid. What a little smirk face.
When I looked at that kid's smug, smirking face, I just saw hundreds of Brett Kavanaughs.
If you're anything like the 2/3 of Americans who get their news from social media, and sadly that isn't a joke, you've probably heard about the incident from last Friday involving students from Covington Catholic High School. What should have been a non-story about a somewhat passive-aggressive staring contest between man and boy quickly ballooned into a story on the racism-infused smugness of young white high schoolers in Trump's America, and then just as quickly into a story on social media outrage mobs jumping to conclusions.
All right, so everybody is just batshit crazy over this Catholic school, the Covington Catholic High School incident.
The biggest news in social justice this week is, of course, the Covington Catholic schoolboys.
Kentucky Secretary of State says the behavior displayed by Covington Catholic High School students in a now viral video shows a lack of leadership. Backlash continues to grow over the video taken on Friday when the Indigenous Peoples March coincided with the March for Life in D.C. The students can be seen apparently mocking a Native American elder, that's what you're looking at here, and one teen appears to be staring him down. Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes reiterated today that it is the responsibility of political leaders to set a better example.
What we saw in that video was hatred at an all-time high.
All the media coverage fans the fire on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
An exchange between a group of Catholic schoolboys and a handful of Native American men went viral, based on a few minutes of footage of a white kid standing there smiling as an old Native American man banged a drum in his face. A national hate mob has formed to condemn this group of apparently insensitive, racist, privileged, Trump-supporting teens in MAGA hats.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on here, but this must be big. 40 years ago, I guarantee those kids would have been disciplined by their school, perhaps even suspended. Teachers too. This is progress MAGA style. Respect for life begins with respect for the living.
Now these kids can't even go to school, and they're getting death threats. And I mean, it's just blown up to epic proportions, and it's insane. It's literally insane.
And some, like journalist Eric Abris, went so far as to wish death upon the boys. I mean, he was fired from INE Entertainment after he tweeted, "I just want these people to die. Simple as that. Every single one of them and their parents."
Here's a tweet from this Uncle Shoes. This is just one of like 10 of him literally calling for violence against these kids. I'm not going to repeat it. I don't want to get flagged, but this is what he said. And yet his account is still up.
So it's kind of a shocking thing too at first. Like, you know, it's your graduate school and you're seeing it on the global news. You know, when you pull up Twitter and you see trending in the United States, you see Covington Catholic, kind of a weird thing to see.
Austin Picone is a graduate of Covington Catholic.
At first, it was just all negative. You know, this school sucks, these kids are terrible. Like, people saying they're ashamed to go there, as well as like other kids in the area. It's like, you know, starting to share just terrible stories about Cov Cath, whether it pertained to the situation in D.C. or not.
They're known for their competitive sports teams that have produced many state champions. With intense school spirit, one tradition, their Braveheart game. They've also been inspired by Harry Potter. The 600 boys are split up into 6 houses named after saints.
My son loves the school.
Jill Hamlin has always been proud her son is a Cov Cath colonel.
They turn out some great young men with strong moral values.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Facing the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Covington Catholic is a very traditional high school, and it's also a very important school in the northern Kentucky region.
Michael Monks runs the River City News based in Covington.
You can look around the government of Kenton County and see that nearly every official, every person in a position of leadership has some type of connection to that school. And you can also see that there is a certain code for discipline there. It is worthy of certain respects because they do produce such good people, but one that is worthy of scrutiny because of that same reason.
The scrutiny came from all over the world. On January 19th, someone hacked Covington Catholic's website to call it White Male Entitlement High School.
Can we talk about race?
The attacks on Twitter came from liberals and conservatives, even some religious leaders like Lisa Sharon Harper. She and others tweeted out the school's contact info. A barrage of messages shuts down the school's computer system. Covington's Mayor Joe Myers getting nervous about the negativity. He responds with a statement saying, "Videos of the confrontation are disturbing, discouraging, and frankly appalling, and they are rightfully inspiring a tidal wave of condemnation. The videos being shared across the nation do not represent the core beliefs and values of this city."
The Covington mayor came out with this editorial criticizing the behavior of the students from Covington Catholic High School because he was nervous immediately about the potential impact that this could have on the image of the city of Covington, which has been rehabilitated over the years after being another dying Rust Belt city to being one experiencing a very cool renaissance with a diverse population, a lot of artists and creative type people call Covington home now. Has a certain attitude that is unique. So the mayor felt an obligation to try to defend that as this story became national again. All this reaction based on the initial short video that was circulating on Twitter. The city of Covington's Facebook rating dropped by half because of people who were from all over the country coming and leaving nasty reviews and one-star reviews. The Diocese of Covington, which is also based in the city, just blocks from City Hall, had to come out with a statement as well because I'm sure their switchboard was blowing up.
The high school and Diocese of Covington, in a joint statement, condemned the students' actions and stating that the matter is being investigated.
The Diocese of Covington issued a statement saying, quote, "This behavior is opposed to the church's teachings on the dignity and respect of the human person. The matter is being investigated and we will take appropriate action up to and including expulsion."
He could have made just a statement of neutrality. You know, he didn't have to throw everyone under the bus and say, oh, this is abhorrent behavior and we won't accept it and we can't believe they did this.
Jill was a chaperone. She and her son were right there during the encounter at the Lincoln Memorial.
And just like that, the kid will forever be a meme representing hatred and white entitlement. Hashtag Covington Catholic. Well, I have no idea what's going on. I guess I'll have to go and watch the first minute of the CNN report to figure out which side of this I'm on.
And I seen the angry faces and all of that.
The Native American in the video is identified as Nathan Phillips. Media outlets call him a Vietnam veteran, and Phillips tells his version of the story.
I had put myself in a really dangerous situation, you know. It was like, here's a group of people who were angry at somebody else, and I put myself in front of that, all that anger and all that wanting to have the freedom to just rip me apart, you know. That was scary.
The woman who captured the video speaks out as well.
We ended up being surrounded by this group of kids. I really didn't know where it was going, but I knew it needed to be recorded. They were mocking the chant.
It was sickening. You know, what I read was really disturbing.
Julie Irwin Zimmerman is a former editor at the Cincinnati Enquirer and a contributor to The Atlantic.
I was horrified as it unfolded. It appeared to me that a group of teenagers from Covington Catholic had surrounded and menaced this older Native American man, and I was reading comments that they had blocked his path. He was trying to get somewhere. They wouldn't let him through. They were mocking him.
I get it. You have this picture-perfect young white smug MAGA kid facing off against an elderly Native American, and this is a symbolic image we're all too familiar with throughout history. The kid seems entitled, the crowd around the Native elders riled up, liberals are being triggered, minorities are getting their comeuppance, so the media jumped on the narrative.
All I could do was respond and say, I was there, and what you're seeing is not the truth.
That's what journalism's all about. It's supposed to be like truth. So I thought that was really weak.
Lincoln Hammond was there at the steps of the memorial to his namesake.
Well, I can't blame the people for saying that, because in the context it was like not good. But I can blame news networks and stuff like that. They're just like, oh, look at this. Like, let's throw it on the network. Instead of like, isn't that what like journalism is about? Not just looking at the face of something, but like looking at that and then digging in and doing research and seeing what actually is the truth.
Tonight, some wondering how this peaceful rally became a sad display of disrespect.
The outrage turns to the teachers, administration, parents, and chaperones from Covington Catholic.
And my mother-in-law was calling us from Cleveland, who is asking, is this your school that I'm hearing about on, you know, the news? And it was just, I mean, it was horrible.
Threats have come in from across the country by phone, email, and social media.
Covington Catholic must be held accountable. Staff, these young degenerates, and parents must answer for this show of brazen ignorance and disrespect.
We saw a lot of people take to social media to condemn what they thought looked like blatant hate. And we saw people from all sides speaking out about what was featured in these videos. And with this, you had a lot of people specifically looking to the right to see what the response would be, and you had people like Meghan McCain tweeting, "I am gutted over this video of veteran Nathan Phillips being harassed by high school boys. My family and father have deep love and respect to all Native Americans." You had people like Charlie Kirk writing, "High school students make really foolish choices at times. Every person reading this tweet did things you regret in your life. The media's public character assassination of these high school kids who obviously made a mistake is sickening and typical of the left." You even had places like the National Review that put up an article reading, "The Covington students might as well have just spit on the cross," with quotes like, "They mock a serious, frail-looking older man and gloat in their momentary role as Roman soldiers to his Christ. Bullying is a worn-out word and doesn't convey the full extent of the evil on display here." And even had March for Life itself distancing itself from the boys, saying, "The pro-life movement at its core is a movement of love, and the reprehensible behavior shown in the video in no way represents the 46 years and millions of people who have peacefully and respectfully gathered in Washington, D.C. to stand up for the unborn."
Why do these weak children parrot their racist parents? I hope college admission counselors remember the name #Covington Catholic. This school needs to be taught a lesson. Bloody hell, that sounds serious.
Then, to top that off, the Native American guy, whose name is Nathan Phillips, and he is apparently a veteran, by the way, gave an interview where he cried and claimed that the kids had allegedly surrounded him while chanting,
"Build that wall, build that wall."
Not looking good. And after hearing that, people were so angry that the teens and their parents and their school in general, Covington Catholic, were doxxed and began to receive death threats.
Honest question, have you ever seen a more punchable face than this kid's?
Nice, Reza Asalan.
The smug look on the kid's face in front of this poor Native American man just peacefully protesting made me want to actually punch the kid.
When I first saw it, I started getting really mad, right? Like,
Yeah.
it started making my blood boil. And the reason why is because there's something about that kid's fucking face.
Exactly.
His fucking face,
Yes.
man. Like, I saw his face. I was like, that's the face that you just want to fucking smash your fucking fist in.
In the rush to identify the boy featured in the video, the wrong student is named.
Saturday morning when I woke up, a couple of my friends texted me and they said, hey, did you check Twitter? I said no, and then they said, like, they're blaming you, and I was like, for what? Like, I don't know what's going on.
Michael Hodge didn't even go to Washington because his brother was getting married that weekend.
At first, I kind of thought, like, it wasn't a big deal, eventually stopped, and then, like, it kept on growing, it got worse. There's thousands of them. I don't really know the exact number, but maybe around, like, 10,000. Just messages, people tagging me and things, like, on Twitter, Instagram. And I just got all these notifications all day long about it. And so I kind of got a little angry, like, especially too, since I didn't do anything wrong. I was just with my family.
The first kind of direct contact that I had was when actually Michael was driving my daughter and myself over to the bride's house to finish getting ready. And my phone rang, and without thinking, I answered it. And it was a woman who launched into this diatribe about what a horrible mother I was, how I had raised a despicable child, how we were horrible examples of Catholics and Christians. And I was shocked, just so unexpected. And I had several email messages that were becoming progressively urgent. And the email said, your son is being doxxed. And I have to confess, I had no idea what doxxed meant. So I looked that up. And then as I read on, learned that Michael's name, our home address, was being published. My work email and my work number were published. There were messages from all over the country, and there was one from Australia, there was one from Canada, there were a couple from Europe. I was just flabbergasted. People saying I should have aborted my son, which to this day causes me great anger and upset.
And they had to spend their whole weekend fighting off these mobs who were trying to destroy them. And it wasn't even the kid in the video. I mean, that is really horrifying to me.
One said they would slit my throat and slit Michael's throat. I mean, it was very disturbing.
I always felt that people on the left were like these well-read, kind, compassionate people. But somewhere along the line, within the last few years, people on the left are calling for violence. This is very confusing to me.
And they were also identifying the fact that Michael wanted to be a chef and that he had applied to Cincinnati State culinary program. People were being urged to contact them and have them reject his application. So my husband and I were just so saddened and sickened to see his name being smeared.
That wasn't the only case of mistaken identity. When some people Googled Covington and high school, they ended up landing on the website for Covington Latin School. It's only 2 miles away, but it's a world apart from Covington Catholic. Most students at Covington Latin skip 7th and 8th grades. They don't have a football team, and they're co-ed. Some girls who posed for a photo after the March for Life ended up getting attacked online.
People were saying things like, someone shoot the school and someone shoot these kids at the school.
A Covington Latin girl we'll call Stacy couldn't believe she and her friends were caught up in the craziness. Months later, she's still afraid to reveal her identity.
Yeah, kids or teenagers are mean to teenagers, but adults who it's kind of their job to protect kids and children, that they were threatening to hurt them, that's where I feel like this world's really messed up.
They were trying to say, you know, look how woke I am by criticizing these young people. To me, it was really despicable.
Joe Stars is Director of Journalism and Communications at the Fund for American Studies in Washington, teaching young journalists. The Fund's alumni work at almost every major media outlet in the country, including the New York Times, Washington Post, Fox News, and ABC News.
Traditionally, the media has been very cognizant and very careful when it comes to taping minors, when it comes to recording minors, and for good reason.
I remember thinking to myself that this isn't the way that we normally handle a story involving a minor.
Neil Augenstein has spent more than 20 years covering news in Washington for WTOP Radio.
Certainly would not report the person's name or use his or her picture without a parent's permission.
Yes, they were out in a public square. However, they're not public figures. They are minors, and so. But that whole caution went out the window in this case.
This story was a story long before any reporters got there.
It demonstrated to me the power and influence of social media and showed me that it's no longer solely news agencies that decide what's news anymore.
It took off, and you have to remember this all unfolded on a Saturday when newsrooms are minimally staffed. And so you see this thing blowing up on Twitter, and you think, well, we have to find this, Phillips guy and interview him. And you're allowing social media platforms to set the agenda rather than basing your decisions on your own news judgment.
So it's cliche to even say this, but the way the news breaks these days is a lot different from the way that it used to be. And most of the time, it's a whole lot stupider. What's different about our current news climate is that legacy outlets often aren't driving the conversation anymore. Instead, they try their very best to keep up.
Well, and I think cable networks like CNN are particularly victims of this personality-driven news. If you recall, when Walter Cronkite announced the death of John F. Kennedy, he delivered it in a straight, no-nonsense mode.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nowadays, encouraging this whole idea of emoting as a journalist, I think it does great damage to the credibility of the news, and it does great damage to the journalist and to the viewing public. They treated this kid as if he were, the devil incarnate, in my view.
Him standing his ground was the smirk that red-pilled the masses, because there's a lot of white Americans in this country who are realizing that this is a racially based attack by the mainstream media and the left. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Have you seen this man? This is the current face of fascism in America. Some people have even gone as far to say this man might as well be wearing a swastika on his head. The good and unbiased folks of the mainstream media, specifically The Hill, they've got your back on beating you over the head with this story, specifically 28 times in less than 24 hours.
By mid-Sunday, Michael Hodge is off the hook. The boy is identified as 16-year-old Nick Sandman. Because of all the death threats, Nick and his family are forced to temporarily move out of their home, and they're given police protection.
People said that they knew where I lived. They lived in my neighborhood. They were coming to get me.
Your heart stops. You almost shut down. You freeze, and you just, this is happening. Is it real? You have to pinch yourself, and you have to have somebody grab you. And no, it's not. It's not a dream. It's a nightmare, and it's real.
And that's stuff that's hard to take when you're only 16 and you don't quite understand that level of feeling unsafe all the time.
Nick has a very different version of events, and some new video is backing him up, stoking the white-hot story online.
When he saw a clash erupting between a group of teenage students and 4 African-American young men preaching about the Bible and oppression.
You got all these racist bastards with red, you nigga, with all these crackers with racist ass Make America Great hats on.
They're not respectful people. They're not polite people. They're a hate group.
Goddamn dog, get rid of your lights.
A lot of people yell and like do their like say whatever their beliefs are and stuff like that. We see that all day, every day, and like that's one of the cool, fun things about it. Obviously, the Hebrew Israelites weren't very fun to listen to.
You little dirty ass crackers, your day coming. Your day coming.
It was just like kind of shocking, just because like they were saying all this crazy stuff, and we were like, whoa.
And you gonna talk about you gonna get violent with us? Get your old Uncle Tom ass out of here.
The black Israelites can be heard yelling at the students.
This is what the Lord is coming for. All these peckerwoods with America, Make America Great. This nigga want to talk that garbage about nigga what you want to do. Look at all these dusty ass crackers.
It was just crazy because you see these full-grown adults yelling and attacking these children.
Yeah.
And they're obviously teen boys.
Can't stand in the damn sun for 5 minutes.
The demonstrators are part of a religious group known as the Hebrew Israelites.
And they're just spouting out crazy racist shit all day long. Like they're like if they're like the black version of the Westboro Baptist church.
Why you being mean? Get out, nigga.
They often take to the streets in Washington and other cities, including this group in Richmond, Virginia.
They're a different sect, okay? We don't have the whole same doctrine. You have many Hebrew Israelite groups. We're not all the same. That's one common misconception. The major news tried to clump us together, say, look at this, they're all the same. It was good and bad publicity. Yeah. It was bad because we were shown in a bad light. They put a derogatory term on us, black Hebrew Israelites, which were not black. There's no such thing as black Hebrew Israelites. The scriptures say the Hebrew Israelites. That's our nationality, period. It's 12 tribes, period. Now, the good publicity is that more of our people get to see, like, inquire like you, like, what is this?
Part of the message most Hebrew Israelites preach, that the end of the world is near, and that their former oppressors, white people, will end up in slavery.
The reason why this is becoming a big thing is the Lord is forgiving the iniquities that our forefathers did when Moses gave the first covenant. And he's now bringing his people back to the promises that were given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's why you're going to continue to see more Hebrew Israelites waking up, because we're in that time now.
And the so-called white man is going to be taken down.
Yeah.
And we're going to be the next rulers on the earth.
He's in his last rulership. He started with the Greeks and went to the Romans, and now he's falling during the European Union. You know, this is his last leg.
You give faggots rights. The Bible condemns homosexuality, man. They're still humans.
Not all Hebrew Israelites agree with the tactics of the sect in Washington that spewed hate at the boys from Covington Catholic.
Do we agree with the whole situation, how it was handled? No, it could have been handled better, but they weren't wrong because they were standing up for their heritage and nationality.
Still, like, as long as they didn't like touch us or like hurt us, is like, it's not bad for anybody to hear that stuff. Like, see that there's crazy people in the world.
The biggest terrorist on the face of this earth is the pale-faced man, woman, and child.
Marcus Frejo, an indigenous hip-hop artist who is also known as Kese LMC, said he was standing with a friend near the black men when tensions flickered. He said he was worried something ugly was going to happen. So it seems to me, according to these stories, that there was tensions between those black Hebrew Israelites and the white high school students. Those black guys were yelling stuff at them, and they decided to start chanting loudly over them so you couldn't hear what those black guys were saying to them. And then Phillips, he decided to try to defuse the situation.
Some media outlets portrayed Nathan Phillips as a brave former Vietnam vet stepping between the Hebrew Israelites and the boys. The brave part is still up for debate, but the label of Vietnam veteran was quickly corrected.
That goes back to journalists not doing their homework. Had they done their homework, they would have found out that he wasn't really a Vietnam veteran. Had they done their homework, they would have found out that the black Israelite group are bigots. And those two facts alone would have shaped and changed the core of the story.
Bunch of child molesting.
You could hear the black Hebrew Israelites
shouting things.
Racist things at the white people. And
They
the
were
white
shouting
people,
racist things.
And the white people were shouting racist things back at the black Hebrews.
Phillips couldn't be specific about what the boys shouted, and so far, no video evidence has emerged supporting his claims.
They were the ones that were definitely trying to create a fire. They were the ones that were harassing us. They harassed an African American kid from our school.
Yeah, I was just a couple feet away from the whole incident.
Bo was a freshman at Covcath, proud of his school, a 14-year-old with big dreams.
I'd like to play in any D1 colleges for football, and I'd like to go professional. So basically, I went to Covcath because of sports, and the education there is like one of the top ones in the state.
We wanted to make sure he had a good education and good training for his athletics. And where we were, that wasn't going to happen.
Where we lived at the time, we looked at their test scores. Their test scores were not high enough for him to even qualify to be in one of the better, more prestigious schools.
Bo's Uncle Lee and Aunt Amy have been raising Bo and his brother for years and became their custodial parents in 2015. This is the family's first interview.
We moved our whole life.
They aren't Catholic and have always sent the boys to public schools. Committing to Covcath meant a lot of sacrifices, and not just the $8,000 tuition.
We moved our business, we moved our home, we took our youngest child out of, the school that he's been going to since kindergarten.
For the first semester of his freshman year, it all seemed worth it.
He loved it. He embraced it. It was everything to him.
Oh, it was so much fun. Basically, just coming together and just having fun, to be honest. High energy, high standards, and just get to work, I guess.
In my mind, I knew that if he went to Covcath, that his whole life, everything that he wanted was going to play out.
Then came the March for Life.
Whenever you go to Covcath, you have service hours, and to fulfill those service hours, you need to do community service and things like that, and the March for Life helped with that.
We prepared him to see naked women, women dressed as huge vaginas, talking about, my body, my rights, and just extremes that the opposite side of the protest can bring, and that's what we prepared him for. We didn't prepare him for the Native American march that was happening at the Lincoln Memorial. We had no idea that this was going on at the same time.
Basically, I've never seen before, a random Indian man just banging a drum coming towards us, and everyone kind of moved out of the way. He was stepping up the steps, just basically charging at us, and then Nick Sandman just stayed, and that's kind of how it all happened. And honestly, all my peers and me, including, we were just kind of laughing it off. We didn't think anything of it. We just thought, oh, there's some guy banging a drum or have a beat, and we're just gonna dance to it and stuff like that.
And Bo's a goof. Right now, I could set the alarm off on my car, and he's gonna do the same dance.
What the hell is you see a crackers with Make America Great hat on?
Then they're like, I bet you there ain't a black man in here with you. And then they're like, oh yeah, go get Kanye West. Everybody's yelling for Bo. Everybody's yelling for Bo.
They're gonna call one black man.
Kanye West, son. Y'all got one nigga in the crowd, huh?
One nigga in the crowd.
One nigga, huh?
It was very scary and just so irresponsible, to be honest. They were calling me very inappropriate names, and it was very nerve-wracking.
Come on, shorty. Come on, man.
Get out. That's the only one y'all can bring to the front. Hey, we got one home, but he ain't here. Oh, y'all got one home. You see that? But we're racist. But we're the racists. When you get old enough, they're gonna steal your organs. Whoa, hey, why you being mean? Hey, we love you, kid. Hey, we love you.
I just am surprised that I didn't start cussing or something like that. I feel like that's something I would have done now, but I'm glad that I kept my cool and started laughing and just kind of blowed it off. If I would have done inappropriate things like that, I would have gotten in trouble with the school, and I just didn't want to risk any of my future doing that. And So I just kind of smiled, started laughing, and just in an awkward way, to be honest.
That was the thing that should have never been publicized. I mean, it's bad enough he's being attacked by these men, being called racial things, but then he's got to relive it over and over and over and over in the media, and then other people, and then go to school and have to relive it.
And he probably wasn't even at school for maybe an hour and a half, and he sends me a text message that says, I don't want to be here. I need you to come and get me because everyone's asking me for my organs.
People that weren't even there were telling me that they were going to steal my organs and stuff like that. It was very hard for me.
And I didn't want to go to him, well, you know what, you need to tell every kid not to bring this up anymore. It's not their responsibility. You know, you can't, order a bunch of teenagers not to poke fun at each other over incidents that occurred.
They have these lanyards that they wear that has their ID on it. And they stressed it to them, you have to wear this. You have to wear this because if something happens and you get shot, or if someone does bomb the school, we might not be able to identify you without your name tag on.
I thought that I was definitely going to end up getting hurt or something like that, and it definitely was not safe. I feel like we should have taken like way more days off school. I felt like, yeah, there was a lot of threats.
And the second day when he came home, it was horrible. It was horrible. He broke down.
He withdrew. He wouldn't play video games. He wouldn't, he just started completely withdrawing from everybody. He didn't want to come up to dinner. He didn't want to go to friends. Didn't want to go out to a game.
And he never went back after that.
My parents had to pay a lot of money to get there, and then for just all to go downhill and just throw it all away basically feels very bad.
It took him, I would say, a good 2.5 months to really, before we started hearing, him yelling at people on his video game again. That's when we heard that through the vent, he's getting better.
Bo was homeschooled for the rest of his freshman year and then transferred to a nearby public school. Still, he and his parents say they don't hold any resentment toward Covington Catholic.
CovCath's a great school. I don't know. I definitely recommend it. It's great for a kid to go to for education and sports both, but I don't think it was for me.
The diocese is another story, but as far as the school themselves and being upset with them, no way am I upset with them. I mean, I tried everything I could to get him to go back to CovCath, but this broke his school spirit.
The staff of the Diocese of Covington refused to answer any questions about Bo or anything relating to the encounter at the Lincoln Memorial. Sources inside the school say the diocese also directed everyone at Covington Catholic not to comment. They say the school offered Bo and other students counseling and that they tried repeatedly to get Bo to come back.
I think that when I got onto the story, I was trying to put some perspective to it. And I think that we weren't alone. That morning, there were a lot of news organizations who realized that what we reported the day before wasn't the whole story. So we spent some time that Monday morning putting together what really happened that day.
Their rush to judgment, I think, was aided by the fact that Nathan Phillips had put out 4 or 5 interviews by the time I was able to talk. He attempted to overwhelm the story with only his information, which isn't fair.
That massive groups of people started separating.
And then he goes on CNN and he's doing this tour, and he's trying to sound all nice and pure.
So when I started singing our songs, our prayers to God, that drum is an instrument that we use to communicate to God.
Oh, I just came over there because I I feared for their future. I cared for the kids. And
yes, Nathan Phillips, an elder Native American tribe leader and Vietnam War veteran, had the audacity to break up the tense situation between the crowd of screaming MAGA kids and 4 black Israelite trolls with a peaceful prayer. I mean, how dare he? How dare he scare our young white boys this way? He deserves to be surrounded by this crowd of kids who then proceed to mock him and throw up the tomahawk chop. And luckily, a brave young white boy courageously stood in front of this brown interloper encroaching on his white personal space.
The Nathan Phillips guy, what he was trying to do was, he says he was trying to diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
But some of the boys took it as he's being aggressive.
Yeah.
He's beating a drum in front of my face. That's aggressive. That's how they took it as, right?
I could tell that he wasn't there for what he later reported to try and get to the Lincoln Memorial. And that bothered me because he was obviously staying right in front of me for a reason, which I still don't know exactly what he wanted, but he stood there, and that was his choice. So I just figured I needed to wait, and that's all I did. So.
But to be fair, let me just state that I really don't know how these kids should have handled this situation.
And you know, I'm playing my drums, and if I move forward to just get away, he would block me. And I had no way to go. But everyone could clearly see. Everyone can clearly see. He walked up to the crowd. He walked inside the crowd. He had the option to walk around the crowd, walked any direction, but he went up into the crowd. And then, even despite that, he could have turned around and freely walked out.
And you can very clearly see the Native American man walking up to the kids with the drum.
And then he had the nerve to say that he feared for his, he felt like things were getting intense. I'm like, what? Like, you can look at these kids. They all have a smile on their face. No one has a threatening look.
They're young, they're riled up, they're there to own the libs super hard with their new MAGA hats, and they're there to protest women's rights to reproductive freedom and stuff.
If you're threatened by these kids, then there's something wrong with it. There's something has been taken away out of your manhood.
I did not see any fear in his eyes or anything. I didn't think he was scared because he had a choice to stand there, so he could have moved at any moment that he wanted to. Whether he was awkward or not, I guess he could have left.
You know, he just stares. I mean, what's the alternative? I really don't know.
It wasn't about winning for me. There was no contest there.
Do they deserve to be doxxed and vilified on the internet? No, they don't.
Them children was minding their business. That teenager was standing there with a smirk on his face, which, if he would have moved, it would have been a problem.
Yeah.
I don't care what he would have done, it would have been a problem.
Standing there and staring at someone who has approached you is not intimidating, it's not antagonistic. In fact, it's exactly how you should respond, for your own legal reasons. You don't attack the person, you can't push them away, you turn around, you're offering them a free swipe at the back of your head or something. No, you fucking stand your ground. What else could he have done in this scenario? What was he supposed to do? Break down crying? Crying tears of shame or something like that?
The simple phrase Covcath always uses whenever you're out anywhere, you're always representing the school, your family, your community, and they always say, you don't say anything and you just walk away. Well, I couldn't walk away because I was surrounded, but I did the next best thing. I stood there and I didn't say anything.
This kid, with this guy beating the drum inches from his face, he handled it, I believe, way better than I would. I don't think I would have.
No, you might have walked away. I mean,
I don't think so.
Really?
No, I don't think so. Not when I was 16.
I can tell you that my reaction would not have just been to stand there with a smug smile on my face. I would have done much worse. I would have probably yelled obscenities.
It's now way harder for me to see those same clips and see it as them mocking him or antagonizing him or trying to drown him out. If anything, it appears that you just have a lot of these kids in this group that are just completely confused as to what the heck is happening. I mean, you can see that from some of the facial expressions. At one point, you even hear someone say something.
We were all in disbelief and kind of bewildered. I don't think anyone had comprehended what had just happened.
I was kind of confused by the whole situation. I was like, he's banging on a drum, one kid's standing there. I didn't think Nathan Phillips really did anything wrong. I don't think Nick Sandman did anything wrong. He can bang on his drum wherever he wants, right? and Nick Sandmann can stand and look wherever he wants, right?
They got to a point where it was scary.
Like, come on, if you go around talking about you're a Vietnam veteran and so on, and you've seen what people look like when they want to kill you, but you look at these students who are smiling, playing, being silly, like most and all kids, I would say all kids at some point in their life. Of course they look like that. And he comes there with his drum thinking, oh, well, that's going to calm down the situation. Like, that's going to communicate to tell them to be quiet. What universe does that work in? Like, these are high school students. What did they expect?
They didn't show this part, but when the native dudes were talking to the white kids, there was this one native dude that was like, go back to Europe, you guys don't belong here and all that. And I'm all like, this is a fucking kid, bro. Like,
yeah,
why are you showing so much aggression toward a fucking high school kid?
So if you want to make America great, because for you white people, go back to Europe where you came from. This is not your land.
As one of the native men began to debate with one of the students, keep your eyes on Nick Sandmann. This is a critical moment that was omitted from the mainstream narrative.
Get the fuck out of my face with that shit. Hey, it's not bullshit. It's proven, man, come on. It's
It appears as though Nick is trying to hush his schoolmate to show more respect to Mr. Phillips.
He walks away after he's told the other kid, stop it.
And I quickly overheard their conversation, which was starting to turn into more of a yelling match than an actual dialogue. And I just told him, be quiet. We don't need to get into a back and forth. We're just waiting here. So I motioned to him that, this was something we didn't need to be involved in. We just needed to get out of there. So.
And that was that. Their bus arrived and the students went on their way. Mr. Phillips did not advance up the stairs, but instead turned towards his people and celebrated their victory.
We won, Grandpa! We fucking won, Grandpa!
You had white kid, bad, red hat, mag hat, bad, and then, the black group and the American Indian fellow, good guys. That simplistic approach to the story shaped it.
I had known that the news media was biased and there was fake news, but until I lived the fake news, I didn't believe it could be as vicious and vile as it was.
I, like many others, commented on the information that was being thrown out there by all sides. And I joined Meghan McCain in what she added in a follow-up tweet after she deleted the previous one, saying, I, like many others, may have reacted too quickly. And I do apologize for that.
It was a cause for a celebration of outrage, because there's nothing quite as satisfying as having your own biases confirmed. But did the video really describe what happened? That should have been the first question that journalists asked. Checking facts and adding context is what journalists are paid to do. It's in the first line of the job description. And yet, amazingly, almost nobody in the American media did that.
Kill. Hi, I'm Sam. I'm Grant.
Two Covcath boys posted their own video, picked up by news outlets around the world, including Chinese NTD News.
Several media platforms blatantly lied about the events regarding the controversy in D.C. There have been many threats against our lives, against our parents. Some of these threats include that we should all be locked in the school and it should be burnt to the ground, the school being bombed, school shooting threats. It all spews from a 30-second clip taken out of a 2-hour video out of context, and people jump into conclusions before the full story is released. Nobody did their research, and it's now showing.
Hello. A representative from LifeSite News delivered a petition signed by more than 28,000 viewers from across the country, calling for the bishop to apologize to students from Covington Catholic.
All right, the boys deserve an apology, sir. Please, don't let the wolves get them.
Outside the Diocese of Covington, anti-abortion activist Randall Terry confronted Bishop Foys, demanding an apology for condemning the students after the first video came out.
These boys were thrown under the bus, and they should have been lionized. They should have been praised for their dignity, for their calm.
Our boys were targeted.
Jill and some other chaperones take to television to defend the boys.
No violence. They did not attack those gentlemen. They stood there waiting for their bus.
Your college degrees was paid off of the bloodshed of slavery.
They were curious of those men, so I got in between those men and the boys and pushed the boys back. Eventually, I could get 8 to 10 of the boys that knew me, and I said, we need to get out of here.
The parents say the 170 boys were standing, waiting on the bus to pick them up.
Salmon released a public statement giving his account of the incident.
A bunch of incest babies.
He said the students responded by asking a teacher chaperone for permission to perform school spirit chants to counter the insults.
I don't think everyone knows that we've won national awards for just how crazy we get in support of our school.
I don't know how it became a thing in Washington, D.C., but it's just like, I think it's just we do them all the time. Like we do them at pep rallies, we do them whenever.
In an NBC News exclusive interview with Today's Savannah Guthrie, Sandman says he wishes that he just walked away, but doesn't think he owes anyone an apology.
Do you see your own fault in any way?
As far as standing there, after the first couple of questions, I could tell they were questions where she was saying the answer and she wanted me to agree with her. Thankfully, I do mock trial, so I immediately thought of it as a cross-examination, and I realized as the witness I needed to not give her the ground that she wanted to. She wanted me to give her, and I needed to give her the truth, not her slighted version of it.
Tribal elder Nathan Phillips has told the Today Show the students should face some consequences.
Instead of being expelled, that the students should go through some kind of sensitivity training.
Everyone's looking in amazement because that's exactly what you would do. Like, who is this joker? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't even know what you're saying. So what they try to do, they try to clap with it, like, okay, maybe we can get with this beat, hum. I'm like, where's the harassment?
At one point early on, it was rumored that they were chanting "Build the Wall," but no one has surfaced any evidence of that whatsoever.
Well, that's what I heard from the Native American elder when he was talking about it in a video. He said,
I heard them saying, build that wall, build that wall.
It isn't audible on the video clips, I think, that are out there, but did you hear that?
I did hear that. You can hear him saying, build that wall.
I've yet to see or hear one Covington kid utter those words. I did, however, find a clip of the Israelites saying this.
Build that wall. Why you don't build the damn wall?
The media definitely went a little overboard with the way they crafted the narrative here. But the MAGA kid's carefully crafted message, written by the PR company his parents hired, made him and his friends out to be much more innocent than they actually were. It even had students covering themselves up in black paint for blackout games.
This photo does not even depict the Covington boys at the heart of the story. In fact, they would have been about 9 years old when it was taken.
Now, I'm not going to say that this is blackface or whatever. I guess you decide for yourself. And if it was blackface, it was only on Blackface Day, so it's okay, obviously.
The bubble situation in northern Kentucky is so severe that even at an intelligent, culturally rich institution like Covington Catholic, no one stood up to say, fine, let's do a blackout, wear black clothes, paint your arms, but please do not paint your white faces black.
That's a legitimate thing to say. We are in a bubble.
The kids, the kids may be ignorant to that, but the people who control the school system, they know the history behind blackface.
It was kind of like a big thing for the student section to, dress up. We had blue outs, white outs, blackouts. That was just a natural thing that all schools had. We didn't have any intentions of it being racist, but some small section, I think it was maybe 3 people on a Facebook forum, said something, and it was outlawed. It never really amounted to much. It was just kind of like a one-page thing that we kind of saw people bashing us on. There was no local news on it, no global news saying how Covington's racist. You had a few parents saying that they thought it was racist. However, I think it was kind of shut down by a few parents saying, come on, are you serious?
Kathy Griffin just won't go away. She's recently shared a photo of the Covington students flashing what they're calling a new Nazi sign, but then she quickly deletes it after being called out for it. This is what she's been sharing. Covington's finest throwing up the new Nazi sign. Yeah, I'm not sure that really is here, the new Nazi sign. Looks like they're saying a three-pointer.
We love to engage in these sorts of individual internet witch hunts to feel good, even if it's for a brief moment. And racists should feel unwelcome. But the interaction between Nathan Phillips and Nick Sandmann didn't pass my personal, this is bad enough to dox the fascist smell test.
I think it was shitty that the kid got death threats. I think it was shitty that his family got death threats. I don't think that's, the solution to anything.
If that were my son, who happens to go to a great Catholic school, would I like what he did? If I were there, would I have allowed the kids to be in that situation? No and no.
Everybody in Northern Kentucky's somewhat in a bubble, and then you get to go to D.C. and you get to see all this crazy, cool, culturally diverse stuff. Shouldn't that be something that should be glorified? Like look at all this different stuff that people with different views. I think it's cool. I think people using their free speech to say whatever they want is super cool.
The Twitter account that helped spread the initial video has been removed. The user at 2020Fight claimed to be a teacher and an advocate named Talia from California. There was a photo appearing to show Brazilian model and actress Natalia Cardoso. In a statement, a Twitter spokesperson said deliberate attempts to manipulate the public conversation on Twitter by using misleading account information is a violation of the Twitter rules.
The lesson here is really to question what is the genuine source of this content and how is it being framed, and then how is that framing being elevated by the news media that you're looking through.
Congress briefly investigated the suspended Twitter account, but according to Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner's office, it was ascertained that the account originated in the U.S., so it's not of interest to the committee. So no Russian or foreign involvement, no more investigating.
President Trump calls a group of Catholic high school students from Kentucky symbols of fake news and how evil it can be.
President Trump tweeted, looking like Nick Sandmann and his Covington Catholic students were treated unfairly with early judgments, proving out to be false. Smeared by media, not good, but making big comeback.
It's pretty mind-blowing when I see it, and I'm definitely taken back. The office of the presidency is one that I really respect. So it's a great honor whenever he reaches out to me.
The boys' representative in Congress, Thomas Massey, also sent a tweet saying, "Thank you, real Donald Trump, for supporting our Covington Catholic students." President Trump says he knows the Catholic school students will turn this experience into something positive. He tweets, "It started off unpleasant, but can end in a dream."
The media, the way that they reported it was, oh, here's this guy who's a Vietnam vet. He's being disrespected. His culture's being disrespected, which I kind of side with. I don't know. But it just came out, too, that he's not even a Vietnam vet. He is a veteran. He was in the Marines, but he didn't get deployed to Vietnam.
While he was in Lincoln, Nebraska, he served as a reefer mech, R-E-F-E-R-M-E-C-H. That stands for reefer mechanic. A reefer in the Navy and Marine Corps is a refrigerator. He was a refrigerator mechanic.
Nathan Phillips never clarified, and the journalist never cared to ask for clarification. And Phillips' play for plausible deniability worked because he misled countless reporters who were all too happy to be misled. Journalists have published outright lies about Mr. Phillips' military service. A subsidiary of USA Today, Detroit Free Press, also published this lie, reporting that Phillips joined the Marines serving in the Vietnam War.
In the end, I don't make the news. I just report that shit. Was this guy a Vietnam veteran? No, he was not. Did he say he was? Nah, I don't really think so, but he didn't correct that stuff. Kind of played around with that and let CNN and everyone else run with that thing, beef up this story.
For more than a decade, former Navy SEAL Don Shipley made it his mission to expose stolen valor, people lying about their military service. After his post on Nathan Phillips, YouTube shut down his channel.
Some have said that you were a Vietnam veteran. I don't believe you have said that. What exactly is the nature of your service?
What I've always said is I've never stepped foot in South Vietnam.
I'm a Vietnam vet, and I served in Marine Corps 72 to 76. I don't talk much about my Vietnam times.
When I come home, those times, I got spit on, actually spit on, called a baby killer.
Little blonde-haired, blue-eyed hippie girl come walking up to me one night and just spit on me, you know. Called me a baby killer. I feel bad because I beat up her boyfriend. I really do feel bad about that, you know. She hurt my feelings.
So to be clear, you did not serve overseas.
I don't know how much clearer can that be?
By Monday morning, January 21st, some of Phillips's friends and defenders have come to Covington for a protest, along with a few others supporting the students. Some national and local media outlets are tagging along.
In the face of atrocities, to stand up in the face of hatred and evil, and today that's what you instilled in our relative Nathan Phillips.
I know Nathan, and Nathan is a gentle man. And I mean, you know, and it's like in the fact that he stood between, you know, these two opposing parties. I mean, that right there is a testament to who he is.
I'm not surprised by the rush to judgment. I'm surprised by the proliferating it after evidence came out that what they were saying was not true. They seem to look deeper to back up their point instead of going, oops, you know, our bad. They didn't do that.
The fact that these white boys from Covington Catholic were wearing these Donald Trump MAGA hats, it fits a certain image. It fits a certain narrative. And that can be triggering for some people.
My first thought about the MAGA hat was, I can't believe the school allowed them to wear those. And as more information came out, I read that the boys had just purchased the hats on the mall.
Billy Piccolo has been cashing in on the MAGA hat craze from his prime spot near the Lincoln Memorial.
Of the hats we sell, it's mostly all MAGA. We sell about 2 to 3 dozen a day, probably.
You're in DC, you're on March for Life, you just buy things. You know, you see everyone on the corner selling them. You know, it's like almost like going to a sporting event. Like, you know, you're gonna buy a little hat, a souvenir.
Back in 2017, Vox called the hats the must-have DC class trip souvenir for white males. And Billy says sales haven't let up.
Usually when we sell inauguration stuff, we sell it only during the inauguration, and after that it ends. This one here, because of the hat, we've sold it for 2 years and nonstop. What a lot of students that buy them. If you get a bus group, they'll buy 20 hats or something like that.
Billy and some others think it's more teen rebellion than making a political statement.
It's just a fad. Everybody wants to, it's like smoking a cigarette. Everybody wants to smoke a cigarette, so they want to be in. So everybody wants a hat to be in. That's what it is, I think.
Hey, this is funny, like, we see all these people wearing MAGA hats and people get mad, so let's be high schoolers and kind of like annoy everyone.
When I was in high school, wearing a t-shirt from the Ramones was considered punk. That would be my rebelliousness.
DC radio reporter Neil Augenstein doesn't think adults should read too much into kids buying MAGA hats on the mall.
I don't believe that the hat that somebody's wearing necessarily tells you everything about the person. I don't believe that every teen who comes to DC who buys and wears an FBI hat wants to be a member of the FBI. Whether a kid today who picks up a Make America Great Again hat is doing it out of rebelliousness or love of country or love of President Trump, or because they don't like President Trump and because they want to, show it that way. I don't put too much credence in what they're wearing, and I think that to say that because somebody is wearing a hat means that they are something is not appropriate, and certainly not for a journalist.
And I remember I talked to one kid, he was like, yeah, I just threw it on because like my hair looked weird.
We bought the hats in DC as I bought mine because I do like the way the president stands for pro-life. I wasn't even buying it to stick it to counter-protesters or other people. And one of the things that I was not happy with more than other things was that people assume that because of the hat that I'm fully, you know, a supporter of the president. I don't agree with everything, but the way they painted me as just, you know, like a brainwashed kid who bought the hat or whatever is just not true.
Even if you're just standing there smiling, you can have your life ruined, witch hunted by the media for wearing a hat.
Keep America great. For so many people, that's racism.
Yeah, but that's because of the mainstream media's narrative that's painted Donald Trump as a racist. I don't agree with the narrative.
This is a situation where it only is wrong because of the people that are involved, because one side was wearing MAGA hats and the other was a Native American. And if you put any other clothes or any other color skin on these people, all of a sudden the narrative changes. That to me is a problem.
Has there ever been a time like that where an object like a red hat with white letters was so repulsive to half the country?
Some people see it as the equivalent of a white hood.
Wow. I don't know about that.
Surely we know that a 16-year-old is not aware of all of the implications of wearing that hat.
Well, yeah, but the problem with that is Kanye wears it.
And I put positive energy into the hat.
Get out! But the hat has been a magnet for negative energy from Florida to California.
A young African-American man says employees harassed him for wearing a Make America Great Again cap.
Joseph said some of the Cheesecake Factory workers were so bothered by his hat, they indicated they'd hit him.
Our top story at 5:30, a Bay Area woman is out of a job after confronting this man wearing his Make America Great Again hat.
The woman, Rebecca Parker Mankey, then began taking photos and posting about it on her Facebook, saying she was going to shame him, get him fired, kicked out of clubs, and march up and down his street. The store owner decided to fire her after he read her Facebook posts.
We feel that music is what brings people together, and so having someone then making comments that are divisive is just not consistent with our values.
She didn't want to discuss the issues with me. She wanted just to scream about Nazis and so on.
Victor wears a yarmulke underneath his MAGA hat. He is Jewish, and so to him, being called a Nazi is hurtful.
People with an education should know better than to say stupid things like that.
Watch what happened early Wednesday morning.
Supporting the president. You ain't support.
There's an expletive there, and then he shoves that water or that drink into the teen's face. The teens were left stunned.
I didn't think it would blow up to what it is right now.
The 30-year-old man in the video has since been arrested, and as well, he has been fired from his position.
Grown-ass men shouldn't be fucking with 16-year-olds, throwing fucking drinks at them and try to just be like, I'm cool, nigga. And this is really reminiscent to what happened to Blair White, right?
I was trying to get your hat because you threw your hat.
You took my hat right off my... Oh my...
I'm not going to say, well, she deserved it because what was she wearing? And that's what we're saying about these kids now. They deserved it because what they were wearing.
And so he's like, is that the hat? And we're like, yeah. And so he's like, I can't do this ride.
I was frightened. I was angry. Would this be the new norm? Will we be judged by the way we think? That's the same as being judged by your religion, your gender, or your race.
That's when he drew a .40 caliber pistol out and stuck it in my face inside the store with numerous people around.
What did he say when he pulled the gun out?
He said, this is a good day for you to die.
I don't think it's a stretch to imagine something like this happening a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months from now, and someone actually getting killed.
Right, like Charlottesville. I mean, very, very similar to what happened there when that guy drove over those protesters. The ramping up of the dialogue on both sides, the rhetoric, the violent talk, it's so disturbing and so unnecessary.
I feel like that hat means so much more than just supporting the presidency or supporting the president. I feel like it's taken on a different meaning. For me, when I see that, I automatically think, well, what are your values? What are your intentions? If you were to see me or if I were to see you just one-on-one by myself in a dark alley, what would you do to me? I think that that takes on a different connotation for folks who might be disenfranchised. So for me, I automatically rush to judgment, and that might not be the right thing to do. They might not know what the deeper meanings of what that hat means, or what those words mean, or they might, and that might be, growing a new generation of maybe intolerance. Those are my thoughts. They might not necessarily be fair, and I understand that. I feel like I would have to have a conversation with maybe a young man wearing something like that.
They can do whatever they want because of free speech, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that was a good idea to walk in that situation. I personally wouldn't do it, but you know what? This is not Russia. This is not North Korea. You can say whatever the hell you want. This is America. That's personally what I think. If people think I'm a jackass because of what I believe, then that's up to them to make the distinction. But it's not up to the government to try to tell people what they can and can't say. If you want that sort of situation, then you can go to Cuba or Venezuela, or a place where the internet is censored and where people get arbitrarily arrested for no reason. That's just what I think personally.
A show known for stories ripped from today's headlines made some news of its own after an episode showing a white boy in a red hat facing a person of color at a protest. They made the boy Jewish and the woman Arab, but critics said it slammed the kids from Kentucky.
Covington Catholic High School reopened Wednesday with a police guard.
Some real-life law and order has been a part of the equation since the video went viral in January. Local, state, and federal authorities got right to work investigating threats made online.
You can't claim that I didn't really mean it just because I typed it into a computer.
Rob Sanders is the Commonwealth's attorney for Kenton County, Kentucky. Covington is the county's largest city.
It's well accepted and well known that you can't threaten someone with bodily harm to their face. You can't call up a school or another place where people gather and claim that you're going to shoot someone or that you're going to blow the building up or something like that. Everybody knows things like that are against the law. The fact that somebody is typing that into a keyboard doesn't make it any less illegal. That's what people need to realize, whether they're in a fit of rage or whether they're in a heated moment or whether they've been offended by a video or a picture, it doesn't really matter.
Telling people to do something could cross the line. Harassment is illegal in many jurisdictions. So if you go on Twitter and instruct people to do something, you might actually face civil or maybe even criminal penalties.
It's sick, and it gives unstable people a license to act and to behave in illegal ways under this cover of this emotionally satisfying outrage. It's really, really dangerous.
People aren't nearly as tolerant of one another or of one another's opinions, and that's probably exacerbated by the internet because it's a lot easier to mouth off and say nasty, spiteful, hateful things when you don't have to look the person you're saying it to in the eye. It's that anonymity that gives people the courage, although it's not really courageous, but it allows them to say things that they wouldn't otherwise normally have the audacity to say if they had to look the person they were saying it to in the eyes.
Some kid stood there, so I want to throw you in a wood chipper. Yeah, it was crazy to see people say that.
Some people say, oh, well, they were just blowing off steam. They don't really mean it. When someone says they're going to burn down a high school or shoot somebody, we better take those seriously, because a lot of times we don't take these things seriously. And then what happens? Then we have a school shooting and people wonder, well, did we catch the signs? Were there any indications that this person was going to do this? And there were.
My son Nicholas Sandman was the victim of the most sensational Twitter attack on a minor child in the history of the internet.
Ted Sandman testified before Kentucky lawmakers pushing for a bill that would make it a crime to dox minors, sharing their personal information or threatening or intimidating them on social media.
When you dox someone, you are sending out their information with the intent that you want someone to do something with that information. You're not posting it because you want them to send a cake to their house.
A lot of the things that were said were very violent. We know where you live. We're going to put your son 6 feet under. You better be watching over your back every day. And that still haunts me, a lot of this. And every time you step out the door, you've got to realize that now I'm not in the safety of my home. I'm out here and the world has changed. We have a really good chance of passing something that will protect minors from harassment from adults that should know better.
As valuable as Twitter is, I think that I try to liken Twitter to getting a tip from a good source, something that you'll check out and you'll investigate yourself, and if it's a story, then report on it. When you retweet somebody else's story, or especially something that draws a conclusion, you are, for better or worse, perpetuating that person's take on the story.
If it's driving what you decide to cover, if it's influencing how you cover a story, then it's not a tool and it's a crutch and it's hurting your reporting.
Our kids are surrounded by social media day in and day out, and you know, the big learning lesson of this is don't rush to judgment, don't believe what you first see. You have to investigate things, you have to look deeper into things.
The Bishop of Covington paid for an independent investigation after apologizing to the school, saying he was bullied and pressured to condemn them when the story broke. The report cleared the boys of any wrongdoing, writing that while some performed a tomahawk chop to the beat of Mr. Phillips's drumming, they found no evidence of offensive or racist statements by the students.
Nathan Phillips has responded to the findings. In an official statement, Phillips said, "I stand by my original observation that the situation seemed potentially dangerous and that I felt a spiritual call to sing between the two groups as a peacemaker. I ask everybody to remember what we all saw, students performing a culturally appropriated school chant and a tomahawk chop just feet away from me on that fateful day. That this racially insensitive behavior is still widely seen in America in 2019 does not make it okay. And from my perspective, it was disrespectful, racially charged, and harmful. I remain hopeful that we as a nation can all learn a better way to treat one another from this incident."
The investigators also said they found no evidence of a school policy prohibiting political apparel on school-sponsored trips.
Back in like 2012, people were buying little like hope hats for Obama.
In his letter to the faithful, the bishop wrote that the boys had been subjected to a bizarre and even threatening encounter at the Lincoln Memorial, and that their reaction was expected and one might even say laudatory. Saying the boys are praiseworthy drew some criticism. Some tweets were disappointed that there was nothing in the report about what the chaperones could have done differently. The Cincinnati Enquirer editorial board wrote they couldn't disagree more with the bishop's comment, and that it's beyond troubling that the school and diocese missed an opportunity for a teachable moment with the students, and that not accepting any responsibility only feeds the perceptions that have been expressed about the lack of cultural awareness and sense of entitlement in the Covington Catholic community. State Representative Adam Koenig wrote in the Louisville Courier-Journal, "The rush to judgment over the media-created debacle has led to life-altering consequences for the school and community." Koenig's a graduate of CovCath. He wrote, "There are many lessons for America to learn."
What I would hope that they are able to gain from that experience is maybe now, when others who look different than you, who come from different places than you, express that they feel injustice for one reason or another, maybe you'll be able to understand a little better.
The student in this video that went viral last month is now suing the Washington Post. Nicholas Sandman was caught on camera face-to-face with a Native American in D.C. After the video went viral, Sandman was accused of bigotry and racism.
The 22-page, $250 million lawsuit claims the Washington Post participated in a modern-day form of McCarthyism by targeting and bullying Nick Sandman for 3 days.
They've also filed lawsuits against CNN and NBC.
I think this case has significance when the media is reporting about a private individual, in this case, a minor child. You don't rush out and publish a statement from the diocese or interview and publish the statements of Nathan Phillips or the alleged eyewitnesses that are condemning this boy until you have taken the time to exercise ordinary care investigate it, make sure you got it right, because if you're wrong, you have impacted this young boy's life for its entirety. Nicholas has sought treatment because of the emotional stress that he has been under. And we don't know how it will impact him later in life, except we know that it will never go away.
What the media tried to do was frame the discussion in the context of racism, which it wasn't there.
Attorney Todd McMurtry says some in the media link Nick and the boys from Covington Catholic with stories about white supremacists.
This was primarily the Washington Post that had those links. You know, you could click a story about white supremacist or about Trump's America or whatever, all implying that the action of Nick and the other Covington Catholic students was somehow racially motivated, which we now know factually it was not. I feel as an attorney involved in this case that not only am I representing Nick and the Sandman family, but also speaking out for our entire community that was maligned.
The new libel lawsuit has now been filed, and 8 unnamed students are suing a number of different people.
Some other boys from Covington Catholic brought suit against Kathy Griffin, politician Elizabeth Warren, and some other high-profile people online.
Nobody said, I'm accountable. Well, you know what? I pray and hope, and I'm going to fight that the court will hold them accountable.
Kevin Murphy represents the kids and their families.
And everybody thinks, well, I can call you anything I want to call you, and I can't be held responsible for it, and you have to live with the damages. That's not the way it works, especially in Kentucky.
Now, Nick Sandman and his family aren't part of that lawsuit. They and other Covcath families are concerned the event will follow the boys beyond high school.
Yeah, I do worry because it's still out there. He's going to be applying for colleges, and we were told, do not put anything about the March for Life on your college application. We've been on college visits, and they say, where do you go to high school? As soon as he says Covington Catholic, were you there?
As for the boy who wasn't there but was still doxxed because of mistaken identity, Michael Hodge was accepted to the Midwest Culinary Institute at Cincinnati State. The school rejected efforts online to keep him out of the program.
So I want to work at a pastry shop because I love cooking desserts, and eventually open my own shop.
Michael and his family were able to turn all that hate and negativity into a positive. When supporters offered to create a GoFundMe page for his education, the family declined. And Michael's brother Andrew suggested people donate to the Mary Rose Mission, where Michael has volunteered making and serving meals.
So yeah, it was really nice to get to help them because I love working there and it's very special.
They surpassed their goal and donated more than $21,000. Now, bringing home a big check from a good job was a concern for alumni like Austin Picone, worried about being blacklisted.
It was kind of mind-boggling to see people bashing Covcath and saying that they wouldn't hire someone just because they went to Covcath. And obviously, as the facts came out, that fell apart, and I'm happily putting Covcath on my bios, using it on my LinkedIn, using it on my resume, and very proud to say that I went to Covcath regardless.
Austin's proud to wear his Covcath gear, and there's been a big demand in the school's spirit shop.
Right after the event, they were shipping things to Australia, all over the world, and that they got a huge boost in sales, which was great. So yeah, it was crazy.
Crazy's a word a lot of people have used to describe the whole thing.
I ultimately blame news consumers for prizing emotion over facts.
Julie Irwin Zimmerman wrote about her own temporary insanity brought on by social media in an article for The Atlantic.
If the Covington Catholic incident was a test, it's one I failed, along with most others. Will we learn from it, or will we continue to roam social media looking for the next outrage fix? Next time a story like this surfaces, I'll try to sit it out until more facts have emerged. I'll remind myself that the truth is sometimes unknowable, and I'll stick to discussing news with people I know in real life instead of with strangers I've never met. I'll get my news from legitimate journalists instead of from an online mob for whom Saturday morning indignation is just another form of entertainment.
There are so many fights on Twitter that are useless, and they distract you from what's going on around you and what's important. So I just put down my phone and go enjoy being with my family and being with my friends.
Nick and his family returned to the March for Life, despite threats.
We had people that had tried to scare us into not going to the march, but it's something that I value way too much to not go to. And then second, I wanted to show everyone that I'm not scared to stand up for what I believe in once again.
Me personally, I didn't want to see the other side claim it as a victory that Nick didn't come. We all wanted to go back. We knew we had to go back.
The family hired private security for their day in D.C.
We skipped out on going with Covcath because I didn't want to give the school the headache of trying to deal with that, but we still came with the same intent and we got the same thing done that we would have otherwise.
It was a very moving experience, especially when we were at the rally before the march actually began. I got choked up about it.
Nick's photo from the march in 2020 was a lot different than the one that made him famous.
It's not surprising that that image was something that people talked about. But the fact that it became a news story, you know, how did that happen? Nothing happened there. They were just standing there. No punches were thrown. Nobody was arrested. The police weren't even called. That was a moment that somehow became a news story because of what it symbolized, not because of what happened. I think that that should be a good lesson to journalists. You know, I ask myself this question often: Am I covering this because it's viral, or am I covering this because it's a story?
We're not just competing against other newspapers and television stations and radio stations and bloggers. We're competing against everyone. We're competing against neighbors. We're competing against your sister's kid who has a new phone and a Twitter account. Everybody is a content creator now, but not everybody plays by the same rules.
For those people who are consumers of the news, and that's all of us, this is a perfect example of how we need to be critical receivers of what we're reading and what we're seeing. Don't take exactly what comes to you. Use your brain, look at the context, step back a minute and say, wait, I need to get the rest of the story. Hopefully the press will do that, but we as viewers and listeners and consumers of the news need to do that as well.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King.
I find it ironic that this happened on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, the same place where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. And in that speech, he said he dreamt of the day when his children would be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. The kids from Covington, Kentucky were judged by the color of their skin and for the hat they were wearing.
That's why I think it's important that we speak up and say something when we see things like this and end up defending right-wingers when we see things like this.
Never, ever trust a 2-minute shock video. You'll end up looking like an ass, as I did.
What this whole situation really shows us is how easily provoked, quick to act, and powerful internet hate mobs can be.
I think when something comes up that we think is like, ah, there's one, get it.
Exactly.
But it's not logical. It's like road rage.
I like the phrase, just agree to disagree sometimes now. Cause
yeah, just let it go. Don't be so emotionally invested, man.
Like, who the fuck cares, man?
We're in a crazy time, and I think what happened on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial that day is a watershed moment, and hopefully it's a moment that we've learned from.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, baby. See you later. Bye-bye.
Peace.